Think about the ultimate power couple. For years, you see them everywhere together. They finish each other's sentences.
They're moving in absolute lockstep, the mentor and the protege. For a decade, that was Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates.
Until you wake up one morning and realize they aren't just sleeping in separate rooms anymore.
No, they're out in the driveway actively slashing each other's tires.
It is messy. Now, if you've been skimming the headlines, you might think this is just, standard diplomatic friction.
A little spat between neighbors.
Exactly. But looking at this stack of intel notes, military reports, and economic analyses we've pulled for today, this is not a spat.
No. The sources are calling it a fracture, a fundamental break.
Oh.
The dam has burst, and what was once a quiet disagreement behind palace doors is now a very messy, very public feud.
And that's what we're unpacking. Because when the two pillars of Middle Eastern stability decide to tear each other down, the roof tends to cave in on everyone else, from global oil markets to, the shipping lanes in the Red Sea.
It's a classic story, really. Ambition, money, and two very, very different visions for the future colliding.
Okay, so let's start with the money, because you can't really understand the gunboats in Yemen without first understanding the boardroom panic in Abu Dhabi. It seems to revolve around something the sources are calling the Bahrain fear.
The Bahrain fear. Yeah, that's the phrase. It's this existential anxiety that apparently keeps Emirati leaders up at night.
Which is fascinating because today you think of Bahrain as, a smaller player, but back in the day...
Back in the 70s, they were it. Manama was the hub. They were the first to find oil, the first to build a real banking sector. If you were doing business in the Gulf in the 70s or 80s, you were in Bahrain.
They were the original Dubai.
They were. Until, of course, the real Dubai woke up. In the 90s, Dubai and Abu Dhabi just built faster, bigger. They essentially ate Bahrain's lunch. Bahrain became a satellite.
And now the UAE looks north to Saudi Arabia, which is, 27 times their size? And they see history repeating itself. They see a giant waking up to eat their lunch.
That is the dynamic, exactly. And you have to talk about Mohammed bin Salman, MBS, and his Vision 2030. We all hear about the flashy stuff, the big...
Real life. Yeah.
Right. But at its core, Vision 2030 is an aggressive plan to take the market share that Dubai currently holds.
So it's a zero-sum game?
In many ways, yes. MBS wants Riyadh to be the undisputed hub for finance, tourism, logistics. And for Riyadh to win that title, Dubai has to lose it. You can't have two primary hubs right next to each other.
And the tactics they're using, they're not subtle.
Oh, not at all. The ultimatum on regional headquarters was the big warning shot. Saudi Arabia basically said, if a global company wants our government contracts, and we're talking billions of dollars, you have to move your regional HQ to Riyadh.
Forcing them to pack up and leave Dubai.
It forces a choice.
Right.
And then you have the tariffs. They started slapping tariffs on goods coming from the UAE's free zones.
And we should just pause on that, because free zones, that's the whole engine of the UAE economy, isn't it?
It's the entire model. Jebel Ali is one of the biggest ports on the planet. Companies make things there tax-free and ship them out. By putting tariffs on those goods, Riyadh is trying to break that model. They're even restricting foreign trucks.
So it's Goliath realizing he doesn't need to play nice with David anymore. He has the people, he has the industrial base.
And he's in a hurry. The UAE took 30 years to build what they have. Saudi Arabia wants to do it in 5. The economic gloves are completely off.
But, economic tariffs are one thing. Companies can adapt. What's genuinely terrifying in these reports is how fast this went from trade policy to, actual warfare. We have to talk about December 2025.
The breakdown in Yemen. Yeah, this was the moment the Cold War went hot.
Now, Yemen's been a tragedy for a decade, but for a long time, the Saudis and Emiratis were, at least on paper, on the same side.
They were. They intervened together in 2015. But their goals started to diverge pretty quickly. The UAE has always been focused on southern Yemen. The ports, the coastline, they back the separatists there. Saudi Arabia cares more about the north, about border stability.
A split focus. But in December, that split turned into a shootout.
A UAE-backed separatist group launched a major offensive to seize territory in the south, right along key trade routes. And normally, Riyadh might have sent a strongly worded letter.
Not this time.
No. This time, according to these reports, Saudi forces actually bombed an Emirati arms shipment.
Wait, say that again? They bombed a shipment belonging to their own ally.
Think about the signal that sends. That is not a mistake. That's a declaration. And the fallout was immediate. The UAE just withdrew its troops, pulled them out.
But the Saudis didn't just let them leave, did they? They basically staged a hostile takeover of the entire Yemeni state. The budget report said they pledged over $1 billion a year for salaries.
For everyone. Soldiers, civil servants, teachers. Riyadh is saying, we own the payroll now. We own the country. You are out. It's a total displacement.
And then the conflict went from soldiers to PR, a war of narratives. And this part, honestly, reads like something out of a spy novel.
You're talking about the prison tour.
The prison tour, it's just,
Yeah.
it sounds unbelievable.
It was pure theater, but it was calculated humiliation.
Mm.
In January, Saudi-backed officials in Yemen took a busload of international journalists on a tour of abandoned facilities.
And claimed these were secret UAE torture prisons.
Exactly. They were literally pointing at dark corners and saying, this is where our brothers, the Emiratis, tortured people. Now look, human rights groups had accused the UAE of this years ago. It wasn't new information.
But for Saudi Arabia to be the one leading the press tour, that's just a knife in the back.
It is. And the Emirati response was visceral. The UAE Defense Ministry called it an organized campaign to damage the reputation of the Emirati state.
Yeah.
And they used a specific word. They called it wickedness.
Wickedness. You don't see that in diplomatic cables.
No, that's personal. The facade of brotherhood is just gone.
And it's not just contained to Yemen. It feels like wherever you look on a map near the Red Sea, these two are backing opposite teams. It's spilling over into the Horn of Africa.
That's the pattern. Look at Sudan, which is in the middle of a horrible civil war. Who's funding the chaos?
Saudi Arabia is backing the official Sudanese military. The UAE is.
Backing the Rapid Support Forces, the RSF, a paramilitary group accused of just horrific atrocities. Now, officially, the UAE denies this, but our intelligence sources say there is extensive evidence of weapon support.
So they were literally funding opposite armies in the exact same war.
Correct. And then there's Somalia. Saudi Arabia backs the central government. The UAE has deep, deep ties to Somaliland, a breakaway region.
And that blew up recently, too, didn't it?
Just last month, January 12th, Somalia's government ended all agreements with the UAE, citing hostile and destabilizing actions. It's the same language again and again.
Okay, let's connect the dots. Why? Why is the UAE backing militias while Saudi Arabia backs central governments? Is there a philosophy here?
There is, and this is really the aha moment in the analysis. The UAE is operating as an activist power. The leadership there, Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed, is ideologically rigid. He is vehemently anti-Islamist.
Right.
He believes the only way to secure the region is to prop up strongmen who will crush any form of political Islam. People like General Haftar in Libya or the RSF in Sudan.
He wants iron-fisted control.
Exactly. Whereas Saudi Arabia, they've pivoted. Mirror Vision 2030. You can't get tourists and investors if the neighborhood is on fire. So MBS has prioritized stability above all else. He's become a pragmatist.
Which explains all the weird new friendships.
That's why they're warming up to Iran, shaking hands with Turkey, making up with Qatar. These were enemies. But now Riyadh sees them as necessary for calm.
So Saudi says, let's make a deal so I can build my city. And the UAE looks at that and thinks, what?
They think it's incredibly naive. They see political Islam as an existential threat and think Saudi Arabia is selling out the fight just for some foreign investment. They think Riyadh is being soft. Riyadh thinks Abu Dhabi is a pyromaniac.
Investing in chaos. I think that's the quote.
That is the quote.
This has to be a nightmare for the United States. I mean, these are America's two most important Arab partners. And you have a Trump administration in the White House that prides itself on personal relationships. How do you manage this?
Well, you're hitting on the paralysis in Washington. The Trump administration is in a bind because the ties aren't just diplomatic. They're deeply personal and financial.
You're talking about business ties to the Trump family itself.
Correct. Both MBS and MBV have deep connections. Jared Kushner's firm took huge investments from the Saudis, but he also has deep ties to the Emiratis. So the White House can't really pick a side without, compromising its own networks.
So they're just sitting on their hands.
Effectively. And that hesitation is really dangerous because while Washington waits, Beijing is answering the phone.
The China card.
It's the ultimate leverage. If the UAE feels the U.S. is siding with Saudi Arabia or just ignoring them, they pivot. More Huawei tech, more coordination with the Chinese Navy. They're signaling we have other options.
A high-stakes game. And we haven't even touched Israel. The UAE has been the poster child for normalization for the Abraham Accords.
They have. The UAE sees Israel as a key partner in that anti-Islamist high-tech vision for the future. They are aligned on security, tech, business.
But Saudi Arabia is still holding back.
They're playing a different game.
Yeah.
They're demanding a clear pathway to a Palestinian state before they'll normalize. So even on Israel, they're completely out of sync.
And then there's oil. The one thing you'd think they could agree on in OPEC.
You would think. But even there, it's a battlefield now. It comes back to their economies. Saudi Arabia needs high oil prices right now to fund those massive Vision 2030 projects. They need the cash flow. So they want to cut production to keep the price up.
And the UAE.
The UAE has a more diversified economy. They aren't as desperate. Their priority is volume. They've invested billions to pump more oil, and they want to sell as much as possible before the world transitions to green energy. So Saudi wants to cut, and the UAE wants to pump.
So there's not a single area left where they agree. Economics, military, diplomacy.
It's hard to find one. The sources say the trust is simply exhausted.
So let's bring this home. Why should someone, commuting in London or New York care about this breakup in the Gulf?
Because geography is destiny. Look where this is all happening. The Red Sea, the Horn of Africa, the Persian Gulf. A massive percentage of the world's trade and energy flows through these choke points.
So if they're playing chicken with militias and gunboats, our supply chains get hit.
Immediately. We saw what happened when just the Houthis started attacking ships. Now imagine if the two biggest military powers in the region are actively undermining each other. It creates vacuums, it creates instability that affects the price of gas, it affects the cost of everything you buy online.
It's a sobering thought. I keep thinking back to how this started. A decade ago, MBS was the student. MBZ, the ruler of the UAE, was the master.
He was the mentor. MBZ showed MBS the ropes in Washington. He vouched for him. He basically wrote the playbook for how to run a modern Gulf state.
And now the student isn't just trying to surpass the master. He's trying to evict him from the market entirely.
It's almost Shakespearean, or maybe Freudian. The son trying to sway the father to claim the throne.
It really is. And here's a final thought to chew on. The sources say that words no longer matter between these two. If that's true, we are not looking at a temporary spat. We could be looking at a decade of Cold War in the hottest region on Earth. And the question is, what happens when the bank accounts of the Gulf can no longer support two superpowers? Because this region might not be big enough for the both of them.